Paint Care is all about keeping it simple for district residents. They make recycling leftover paint easy with convenient locations like your local paint store. Paint Care has 3 simple rules for painting smarter and reducing waste. 1, buy the right amount of paint for the job. 2, use up what's left. And 3, recycle the rest. Visit paintcare.org/3simplerules to learn more, or find a paint drop-off site near you. Last August, we told you about Poplar Point, a federally owned waterfront property in Anacostia that is one of the most hotly contested spaces in D.C. because everybody agrees it's prime real estate, but nobody can quite agree on what should go there. Now there's an update on the area. The city just tapped consulting firm HR&A Advisors to transform the area, which will include transferring the land from the federal government to the city. So let's revisit our conversation with reporter Tristan Navera about some of the options for Poplar Point and who's fighting for what. Today's Monday, September 9th. I'm Bridget Todd, and here's what DC is talking about. So Tristan, I've actually never heard of Poplar Point. Where is that on a map?
It's probably a piece of property that it's really easy to overlook. It's on the east shore of the Anacostia River. It's about 110 acres. If you're familiar with the area, it's directly north of the Anacostia Metro Station, kind of north of where the interchange and the bridge is. It's typically, for the most part, the property is overgrown with grass and shrubs, and it's really even hard to see from the highway, so it's easy to miss.
What is it / was it? What was going on here?
So Poplar Point has a long history, actually. It used to be a part of the tidal basin for the Anacostia River. Now, in about 100 years ago, the district started dredging up sediment and things in order to kind of fill in that land to make it ready to be developed. For the most part, it's been kind of government uses. There was a plant nursery there for a while. The Coast Guard used it for some time. Eventually, the U.S. Park Police operate their helicopter facility out of there now. But it's generally been kind of a quiet piece of land in the middle of a part of the city that everything else has developed around it. I think that land is beautiful. I've been to the Sandlot down there. It's such a beautiful piece of land in a place that you see it and it's this is almost unbelievable that this is right here in the middle of D.C.
Do you have any sense of what's going to happen to the land going forward? That's a great overview of the history of the space, but what's the city thinking about in terms of what should be on that spot now?
Well, that's the question they really want to answer right now. This piece of land has been proposed for everything over the course of history. At one point, it was considered to be a potential new site for Audi Field. At one point, it was supposed to be the FBI headquarters. It's
pretty big range.
Yeah. I mean, whatever DC development buzzword you can think of, at some point has been connected to Poplar Point. And so that's the struggle. DC at this point has decided to go out and seek a real estate development company to help it plan a strategy. They have said very little about what they would like to see there. They have indicated housing would be a good use. It would be a good place to find some retail, some local grocery, something or another, but it's got to be something other than what it has been this entire time since they started talking about it, which is basically just a bunch of overgrown brush.
Well, I was going to say, it's kind of unusual, I feel, that a big parcel of land like this just comes up and is a blank slate and there's not, clarity around what should be there, what will be there. Has there been much pushback from folks in the community about building a housing development there? I know any conversation in DC about potential housing developments always seems to come with a lot of opinions. Has that been the case here?
Yeah, no, you're right about that, Bridget. It's interesting. The district calls this the last great riverfront redevelopment opportunity on the East Coast. Sure enough, there are not very many pieces of land like this out there anywhere, let alone in DC. Now, it's kind of surprising. I have covered real estate development for about the past 10 years, and sure enough, most of the time, folks are pretty opposed to development. In this case, people are ready to see something new. This land has so much potential for so many different things. A big part of the law that Congress enacted in 2006 that started kind of set the stage for Poplar Point to be redeveloped called for most of the land to stay green, whether that be a park or a nature preserve or something like that. There's been talk of maybe athletic fields, all kinds of potential things. There's a lot of different uses for the land that could be probably better, quieter, more usable to the immediate community. And I think there's a desire to see change, to see development finally happen.
So people just want something. They just don't want this spot to go unused.
Yeah.
Do you have any sense of what folks in Anacostia want specifically?
Well, the big thing has definitely been that green space. The land is pretty heavily used if you're a runner or a mosquito, but otherwise it's real hard to access it. Folks want athletic fields. They want parkland. They want, space for outdoor activities. They want congregating space. I've heard a lot of the neighborhood activists talk about, there's a need to preserve some of the nature there, but that's already enacted in the law. The desire is to really unlock the space. You literally can stand on this shore and look across the river and see an entire part of the city that did not exist 20 years ago. As you see, you think of Navy Yard kind of rising on the other side and how much has changed there. So to see this part of the land be stagnant, the neighbors feel a little bit frustrated and they feel like it's time.
Mayor Muriel Bowser's Art All Night is right around the corner, and the nonprofit District Bridges is taking part with 5 neighborhood events, each with its own theme, like The Art of Drag in Logan Circle, or Black Broadway and Beyond on U Street. Our whole CityCast DC team will have a booth at the Mount Pleasant location, alongside local artists, musicians, and business specials. So come hang out with us. It's all happening Friday, September 27th and Saturday, September 28th. Check out districtbridges.org/events for all the details.
So why in the world does Hugo, a quiet postal clerk, keep getting married? Based on a true story, the 22-plus Weddings of Hugo Multiplay is a raucous tale of a beautiful crime that delves into several hidden themes of our day, from empathy and immigration to love in times of hatred, and the universal need to find refuge in a place, person, or a feeling. 22 Weddings is a lot. I definitely want to know what Hugo is thinking. The play premieres at Gala Theater in Spanish with English surtitles. It runs from September 5th to 29th. Learn more and get your tickets at galatheater.org. That's GALATHEATRE.org. So lately, the weather in DC has been downright wacky sometimes. Tornadoes, crazy flooding, bad air quality, so much of it feels out of control. But I recently learned that September is National Preparedness Month, and it is a good reminder to make your emergency plan if you haven't yet. The yearly preparedness campaign was started by the Federal Emergency Management Agency, or FEMA, and they have a bunch of tips on their website to get you started. It's ready.dc.gov/NPM2024. One of the best ways to prepare is to make sure you have a way of staying informed, not just by listening to CityCast DC. Sign up for free email or text alerts from district officials on weather, traffic, public safety, and more by visiting alert.dc.gov. Another tip, build your emergency kit over time. Purchase one extra item each time you shop. A checklist is available at ready.dc.gov/kit. Take time now to prepare because later is too late. Everything you need is at ready.dc.gov.
Are there any people who are speaking up in this conversation who don't want anything there? They're like, leave the land alone. Let's have it be a big open space. It seems like that's probably a minority of voices, if those voices exist at all.
Yeah, there are a few, and that's important to note. A lot of folks there are worried that this land is just going to become a bunch of big glass canyons of dense housing development, and they don't necessarily want to see that. They don't necessarily want to see development for development's sake. If you have looked at, the district's affordable housing development goals, you've seen how Ward 7 and 8 both have absorbed a huge amount of the affordable housing that's been developed in the city. Folks are really concerned that they feel that development of this kind is being pushed into their neighborhoods and out of other neighborhoods, which is frustrating and understandable. So I think there's a worry that the maximum amount of development for its own sake would not serve the neighborhood.
What do you see actually happening here with this space, if you had to guess?
I'm going to guess it's going to take a long time and a lot of conversations. It's about the most DC thing, right? This land has a lot of potential to really uplift the community around it if it's done thoughtfully. I think that there has been a lot of thoughtful conversation there. It's probably going to have some mix of uses. That green space is probably going to be retained in some form. We're probably going to see housing there. We could potentially see any number of other uses there. There could be retail. There's been this conversation potentially about a wellness resort in DC somewhere. We asked them if they were interested in the site, and they said that they were, but they didn't say much beyond that. It's probably looking at the immediate development to the south of it at the Bridge District. The Anacostia Metro Station is already primed for a lot of change, and there's going to be reasons for folks to be coming down there. And so this is probably going to add to that.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned that it's definitely going to be a long, long conversation and process, but where are we in that process? Still just trying to figure out what will be there? Like, where are we in the process to build on this land?
Oh, yes. This is one of those long processes. So the district has taken its bids for a consultant to help it plan a strategy. So that sounds a little bit, legalese
We're into
to say.
Bringing on a consultant to consult on strategy. That's early.
Yes. Yeah. It's DCEs, isn't it? They're finding a developer to help them find a developer.
Wow.
At the end of the day, I do hope that means that there's more time for real conversation about what becomes of the property. This development entity that they're going to select is going to help them plan a strategy and help plan the outreach efforts for what happens. As I said, the city seems like it really wants to see housing here because it seems like it's potentially urban infill that could really catalyze a neighborhood around it. But at the same time, the residents want to see a more thoughtful development than just kind of maxing out the density. So all of that process is going to be determined by the company that's picked now. And then that process is going to kind of control how the project is built. So we're in a long part of the process, but it's an important part of the process. And it's one where DC residents really have a chance to start kind of coming together and saying something.
$1 million question. How long do you think it takes until we see something there?
It'll be years. Like every other project. I mean, this is going to be McMillan. This is going to be the wharf. Probably this design is going to be hammered out over the course of a year, 2 years. It's going to take another year or 2 years to go through zoning, at least, getting financing. We could see something finished up there maybe by the end of the decade. There's a lot of stuff to be determined between here and there.
Well, Tristan, maybe you and I'll see you there in 10 years' time.
Well, actually, the Bridge District there, it's a huge win for them to really have landed the Atlas Brew Works. And so I hope that as many people as can get down there.
Well, thank you so much for following the story, and thanks for being here today.
Yeah. Hey, thanks again.
That's all for today here on CityCast DC. If you liked the show, share it with your friend that's really excited about this area. You can rate the show, leave us a review, and subscribe to our morning newsletter. We'll be back tomorrow morning with even more news from around the city. Talk to you then.